Hello everyone, and welcome. Today I wanted to talk about legacy tactic farming again, since we just got a whole bunch of new tactics and some things changed with Transcendence. So what I have set up now is a 41 entropy setup in order to get up to the +2 advanced battle spaces. The main thing you need to get up to is 35 entropy for the shop refresh, but if you can get up to here, that helps out a little bit more too. You can run on below 35, but if you don't have the extra shop refresh, then you're going to have a harder time getting tactics ascensions, since they don't show up too often outside of shops. This should also be pretty easy to play around if you're somewhat familiar with the game. If you're completely new to the game, you might still struggle with 40 entropy, but with these settings, enemies don't have any more damage or HP, so they're pretty easy to take care of, and then you still get full HP after defeating bosses, and you don't have to worry about debuffs or anything. So I feel like these settings should be pretty approachable. If you're able to go up to 75 entropy for the extra shop refresh, that's even better, but it's not required. So next up, let's look at Transcendence. Transcendence is something you unlock after beating 100 entropy for the first time. It'll be very important if you're looking to farm for double red tactics, because now you get extra legacy tactic refreshes based on your entropy value while playing Transcendence. So for example, at 75 Transcendence Difficulty, I was getting 10 legacy tactic refreshes, which is enough to guarantee that I can put double red tactics on all of my characters if I want to set things up that way. So if you're looking for double red tactics, high entropy Transcendence is definitely the best way to go for now. If you're just looking for more of basic tactics setup, then there's a way to manipulate tactics that won't require Transcendence or anything, but one of the other benefits from Transcendence mode is that you also get a extra shop refresh count. So if you can play on Transcendence, then you might as well play on it, just for that extra shop refresh. Also, if you're manipulating tactics and ending the run early, like we'll be showing off today, you will not ever need to beat the entire run. You'll only need to maybe beat the first area. A lot of the times you can get things set up before the first boss fight even, but at worst, you should only need to beat the first boss fight and get through some of the next area. So you don't have to be able to win the entire run on Transcendence, you just need to be able to do the earlier parts of it. So now that that's out of the way, let's look at choosing your tactics and then setting up mine crystals. Before you go and set up your mine crystals, I would always recommend looking at the tactics codex and figuring out what exactly you want to pass on. So in my case, I want to pass on Orbiting Lightning Orb and Shadow Lightning Orb. One thing to keep in mind with your legacy tactics is that most red effects do not need both requirements in order to be active. They only need the main requirement that would allow them to function. So in this case, as long as I have lightning orbs as a base tactic, the red effect here will be active. I don't actually need to have the dashing shadows. This allows you to make really cool combinations of legacy characters, because then I can run something else entirely in the dash slot and still have the red tactic here. So what I like to do a lot of times is either set up a base tactic plus a red tactic that'll make it active right away. That way I can skip out on this requirement, like I said before. Other good options are just doing a base tactic and one of its tier 2 upgrades. That way you never have to worry about RNG of getting the right one in your selections. Or you could do like a base tactic and a tier 3 version of it. I don't tend to mix a lot of like tier 1 tactics together in most of my builds. It's usually base tactic and red tactic, and then base tactic and one of its upgrades that I want to have active immediately. I think it's most efficient if your legacy tactics are, for the most part, active immediately, and that's one thing that makes farming out specific legacy tactic characters so powerful, because you have everything you need at the start of the run. You never need to worry about picking up anything specific to make your legacy characters work. They just work immediately. So then, when you're looking at your mind crystals, the two that are going to be the most important are chance boost for the main element you want. So in this case, I want lightning orbs, so I'm running lightning. And then potential discovery is also going to allow you to reroll tactics. This is going to be important for the advanced spaces, and then also if you're ever looking for a very specific upgrade to one of your tactics, this is going to allow you to reroll and find them much easier. And then, especially if you're a new player, running the more the merrier will also just give you some free AP as you're farming things out. This is also important for veteran players too, if you like to buy buffs and debuffs from the shop often, because that'll really start to eat into your AP if you do it often. And then aside from that, you can run whatever you want. I'm just running Bloodthirst for some extra quick damage stacking, Violent Impact for some extra early game damage, and then I would also recommend starting well off in order to have more exchange points to use early on in the run. So with all the setup being done, we'll jump into the run and start explaining things from there. Alright, so the main method we're going to be showing off today is the one where you manipulate certain tactics into showing up in your legacy selections. So this will not work if you want to go for double red tactics, because there will be too many legacy tactics in the pool at the end. But if you do want to go for double red tactics, like I said before, what you'll want to do is play on high Transcendence Entropy as high as possible. You'll get a ton of refreshes that way, and then you can get your double red tactics set up easier that way. For the manipulation method, you need to keep the pool of tactics lower, but it's going to let you set up things like Skill Lightning, Lightning Orb Shot, and Orbiting Lightning Orb, so cases where you just want the base tactic and one of its upgrades, or one of its red effects. And this is generally what I do for my characters. I don't set up double red tactics too often, just because, like I mentioned before, I want everything to be active immediately. So I want to have my Skill Lightning, and then I want to have a certain upgrade for it. So how the Legacy Tactic Selection system works is that it takes the entire pool of all the tactics your character has basically equipped in your bars. Now there's one exception to that, and that any tactics you inherit from here do not count towards your selections. So that's one thing you have to be careful of. For example, if I want to inherit Skill Lightning, I need to make sure I don't pick it up here. So here, for example, I want to be passing on a Summon tactic, and then I'll also need the Dash tactic in order to get the red effect that I want for it. So I can start with Lightning Orb, Skill Lightning, Attack Flying Blade, and Flying Blade Pulse. And then none of this stuff will get in the way of what I need. So then what I'm going to do during the run is I'm going to take only the specific tactics I need. If I see any other tactic outside of those, there's a button you can press to sell them back to the shop. So what I'm doing is, again, what I'm trying to pass on is Lightning Orb with Shadow Lightning Orbs. So all I need to do is pick up the 3 Lightning Orb upgrades and Dashing Shadow. Again, any other tactics I see throughout the run, I'm going to sell back. So now I'm going to skip ahead to the part of where I have all that. I just fully prioritize on getting the tactics throughout the run. I'll even ignore potential spaces sometimes, but that's going to be up to you. If you feel like you need more potentials to clear through the run easier, then make sure to pick those up. If not, you can pick up your tactics as early as possible, and then you can always die to end the run early. You don't actually have to win the whole run. Once you've got your tactics set up, you can just die and then pass them on. But anyways, I will see you guys back when I have everything set up, and I need to talk about one more thing before the end of the video. Alright, now we have everything we need. If you tend to focus on tactic spaces only, and you get a little bit of luck with your secondary requirements, so in this case, I needed a little bit of luck to find an Umbra space, but I managed to get one. So I was able to get all 3 Lightning Orb upgrades and then Dashing Shadow in order to get the Shadow Lightning Orb effect that I want to pass on. Now, we're at a very important space as well, because we're on stage 8 over here. This is something important to remember for just general knowledge. Whenever you're on stage 8, there is always going to be a guaranteed shop before the boss fight. So now we're going to talk about an exploit. This is not something that you have to do if you don't want to, but it is going to make setting up your legacy characters much, much faster. What we're going to do is go back to the file selection screen. We're going to make a copy of our file and then put it in just another slot that you aren't using. You want to do this on stage 8 specifically if you get all your tactics set up before stage 8. Otherwise, what you would want to do is you want to get your tactics set up for what you want to pass on, and then as soon as you see an exchange space, you Alt F4 out of the game to force close it, and then when you load back into the game, just copy your save file there instead. So now we're going to go into the exchange space, and we're going to look at what's in here. We did get the attack extension, so that's what we want, and then we're able to upgrade what we want to pass on to gold rank. But let's pretend like we didn't get the ascension we wanted. Now what we're going to do is going to go back to the selection screen, and then we're going to take the copy of the file. Make sure you don't copy the main one again. You want to get the second one that you created. You're just going to copy it again, and you're going to put it back over the main file. What this does is allow you to re-roll the RNG of shops as many times as you want, as long as you copy over the correct file. So now we can look at the shop. It has a potential first, and then another potential, no ascension here. So what I would need to do is go back to the menu again. Again, make sure you copy over the second version of the file. Make sure you don't copy the first one again. You only copy the first one over before you load the shop for the first time. And then after you've loaded the shop, you need to make sure and copy over the second version of the file. Hopefully that makes sense. It sounds a little complicated on paper, but once you do it a couple times, you'll get the memory for it very quickly. You can also keep re-rolling the shop mid-shop as well. So I guess let me show that off again to you real quick before we end it off. Re-rolling it during the middle of the shop is the same method. So let's say I'll just go ahead and buy the potential here, but we'd pretend that it was an ascension. And let's say I need another ascension to get another tactic to gold or get my main tactic to gold. You do the same exact thing where you go back to the menu, you copy over the first file to the second one, you go back into the file, and then again, if the rest of the shop doesn't have what you want, you go back over and you copy the file back to the first one.
Welcome to the AceMind training system.
This is a game exploit, so if people are just really against exploits for some reason, then you would just play out the rest of the run until you get your ascensions that you want from the shops, and then you would lose the run after that point. Or you can keep playing to the end, but you'd have to keep playing to the end with very limited tactic selections, so that's something that's up to you if you want to play the run or if you want to lose the run. So I'll go ahead and quickly lose the run, and then we can see that the method works on the Legacy Tactics selection screen. So again, just to reiterate what we did earlier, the only tactics that show up on Legacy Selection are the ones that you pick up during the run, minus the ones that you have taken from previous Legacy characters. So stuff like Skill Lightning, Attack Flying Blade, and the other 2 red effects we inherited cannot show up here at the last screen. That means the only things that can show up here are the 5 that we picked up during the run. So I can take Orbiting Lightning Orbs here as the main one I want to inherit. And then I can take Shadow Lightning Orb as well. It should be pretty much a guaranteed chance as long as you keep the numbers very low in terms of what you take during the run. And then also you can see down here, I have 7 refreshes already, and that's only at 40 entropy for Transcendence. So Transcendence is going to help out a lot if you just want to play the runs more normally and not do this whole manipulation thing. But if you want to do the manipulation, you can get through just setting up the characters very rapidly back to back. You only need to maybe go through the first and second area to get everything done. Alright, so that'll be the end of that one. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to clear up anything that gets asked. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.